In the earlier class, we have discussed about the beginnings of Naxalite movement. Naxalite movement started from a village known as Naxalbari. I am just making a quick recap of the entire sequence in the earlier class, what we have discussed. That is, in Naxalbari, the peasant resistance movement has started in West Bengal, spread to different parts of the country, and in Andhra Pradesh, earlier part, that is Andhra Pradesh, we had Naxalite movement beginning in Srikakulam, a heroic resistance movement of tribals against the landlords, moneylenders, and forest department, those who are usurping, those who are alienating them from the tribal land. And then that Naxalite movement from Srikakulam, though it was suppressed, it did not discontinued. What has happened? Naxalite movement started in Naxalbari, though it went into setback, it again rose in different areas of the country, because the people who were inspired by the Naxalbari were in different parts of the country, and in Telangana too, we had its echo, its reverberance. Like what was happening in 1969? In 1969, Telangana agitation was there, but Telangana agitation was again undergoing setback. By 1970, January, it was going into setback, and it is withdrawn from the political it was withdrawn from the political movement and entering into parliamentary politics. No mass agitations except elections. So thus that phase has definitely created a condition for the people and the youth, students who were not satisfied with the outcome of 1969. And immediately the uprising of Naxalbari caught their imagination. And what has happened? These people went into the villages with a revolutionary spirit to change the rural scenario, to change the rural landscape, to fight the feudalism in rural areas. Naxalbari essence is, if we have to talk about the essence of Naxalbari, before starting the second phase, I am talking about the essence of Naxalbari movement. Naxalbari movement is a peasant struggle, is a communist struggle, just not peasant struggle. The basic slogan, land to the tiller, is not end in itself. The aim of the Communist Party, that CPML, which was formed after the initiation of Naxalbari, was aiming at the capturing the political power in the country. Means they want to bring a revolution, a communist revolution, which we call it as socialist revolution in the beginning, as it has happened in many other countries in the world. So the revolution which Naxalbari was bringing out will not stop just at anti-feudal struggle. It should spread into different areas of the country, tribals, urban areas, and everywhere. And communist movement should bring a revolution. That was the aim of that one. They called it as New Democratic Revolution. I have briefly discussed about what is New Democratic Revolution. They designed this entire New Democratic Revolution on the model of China, Chinese resistance struggle, Chinese revolution. First capturing the villages, interior areas, then encircling bigger areas, towns, and finally capturing huge areas. Then that is finally capturing the political power in a protracted battle. That is why they called it as protracted people's war. This was the model planned and implemented in China successfully and bringing revolution by Mao. So they wanted to bring the same model. Naxalites wanted to replicate this model. I am using replication. Replication does not mean mindless replication. The conditions in China and India were similar. That is why they wanted to make the point that this is not like Russia, but like China, we get the revolution here. This was the philosophy of Maoists or Naxalites, those who started revolution in Naxalbari. Their basic philosophy, it can be asked in your examination. What is the philosophy? What is the political ideology of Naxalites? Marxism, Leninism, Mao thought, or Marxism, Leninism, Maoism. This is the formulation you should understand and write in your examination. Marxism, Leninism, Mao thought, or Marxism, Leninism, Maoism. In one of the examinations for armed services, they have asked to write an essay, Power Flows from the Barrel of the Gun. Power flows from the barrel of the gun. This was the slogan given by Naxalites based on the Chinese revolution, Mao's quotation. It was the Mao's quotation. What do you mean by power flows from the barrel of the gun? That is, armed struggle is the only way. That is what Mao was saying in China. And in India too, Naxalbari brought the same slogan and says power flows from the barrel of the gun. It means Naxalbari struggle or Naxalite movement or Maoist movement, whatever you call, in India is a struggle which is armed struggle. It is not a peaceful or unarmed struggle. There are many unarmed struggles in the country like Narmada Bachao Andolan or any other movement which is not taking up arms and fighting with some different sorts of struggle methods like hartals, dharnas, hunger strikes and many other forms of resistance are there. That is without arms. But this is a struggle with arms. This is known as armed struggle. Naxalite movement is an armed struggle. So, Naxalite movement essence and philosophy and the beginnings we have discussed till now. Today, we will discuss in threadbare, that is rise and spread of Naxalite movement, its causes and consequences, anti-landlord struggles in Jagitiala, Sirsilla, North Telangana and spreading into other areas of Telangana, Raitu Kuli Sanghams, alienation of tribal lands and Adivasi resistance, Jal Jangal Jameen and different sectional struggles like working class struggles in Naxalite areas. All these things we will be talking about and concluding with what is the present condition or scenario of Naxalite movement in India today. So, first of all, we have to discuss about the rural conditions in 1970s. Forget about 1970s. Let's talk about 1950s, pre-1950s as we have discussed in some other classes too. The feudalism in Telangana is much, much stronger. The feudal lords, the landlords are Doras, are Patels, are rich people who are having their say in the village. Their diktat runs in the village. That is a feudal conditions prevailing in Telangana rural society. The people were not allowed to take any decision without the knowledge of the feudal lord or the landlord or Dora. In 1950s, as I have discussed, though Telangana armed struggle has raised its banner against the feudal repression, it could succeed partially because it was discontinued abruptly, and similarly the same political dispensation or political formations like the parties which were there or the people who are rich in the village came back to the village and kept themselves in the center of the village or rural economy, and they were ruling the rural areas, suppressing the masses in terms of economy, suppressing the masses in terms of social conditions, caste, and completely the whole rural conditions were completely suppressed by the feudal lords or landlords. We call them as Doras in Telangana, Dora. Another word at the same time we have to talk about, very popular word, Ni Banchan Kalmokta. Ni Banchan means Banisanu. Ni Banchan Kalmokta is a like Ji Huzur, or in English we very politely say sir, sir, before any other thing if we talk to our bosses or the supreme people or our higher authorities. We don't take anything, we don't discuss, or we will not be free. We will be just saying sir, sir. The same way, any rural person was saying each sentence with a suffix or prefix, that is Ni Banchan Kalmokta. Ni Banchan Kalmokta means Ni Banisanu, I'll fall on your feet. This is the very popular word in Telangana in terms of feudal period. Why? Because Doras were completely subjugating and you don't have any voice to resist or you don't have anything to say before them. Whatever they say, that is Veda or mantra. You have to accept it. So this Doras supremacy or their hegemony over the complete rural affairs, if you see one by one, for example, in terms of economy, they were commanding large tracts of land under their command. Means they were having hundreds of acres under them. And they are seizing the lands from the poor peasantry or the debtors or some people in the name of caste, or if they don't, if you don't have any pretext also, don't mind. You can seize, you can snatch away the lands from the poor people. And thus they were getting huge tracts of land under their belly. So not only the lands of the private people weak, the lands of the government, that is Poramboku, that is Banjar, what we call, or Shikam land, or Pancharai, all these are different types of government lands. All these lands were occupied are being what you call they are under the command of the landlords here in the village. And other type of economic exploitation is with the labor or the poor peasantry. There are many people, especially the caste, the oppressed caste, Dalits, were in vetti. Vetti, remember this word, vetti means forced labor. This forced labor is having its roots since ancient times. First times in the beginnings, when we discuss about Shatavahana, Visti was the term we were using for forced labor. Visti in Shatavahana period. Now it is Vetti. Vetti is coming from Visti. This Visti means a forced form of labor is very, very prevalent in the rural areas. People, those who do not have any property, what they are becoming vetti or they are becoming bonded laborers. Why? Because for their daily needs, for their occasional needs like marriage, death, ill health, every time you have to borrow money. Once you borrow money, you are going to become a bonded labor. Even some poor peasants having 1 or 2 acres of land will become bonded labor over a period of time, because that 1 or 2 acres will not supplement their income, and they are forced to take money or loans from the landlords or money lenders or the people who are rich in the village, and they are foregoing their lands to the landlords. That is how many people are becoming bonded labor. This was the scenario. Then less wages. Who will ask or who will demand if the powers in the village are very autocratic? You can't demand wages. Whatever they give, you have to take. So less wages were being paid to the labor in the agricultural works. Next is begar, forced labor in another form, like even the artisan sections, like the barbers or the carpenters. Everyone has to render their services for free to the landlord. Means rendering your service for free means you are being exploited economically. And next is money lending. Give some money for loan, but 100% the poor cannot repay the original amount, principal amount, and they are forced to pay the interest, compound interest. And to pay the compound interest, again they have to take loans. This is a vicious cycle. Taking loan, paying interest, again to pay interest you have to borrow some more money. So you are going into debt trap again and again. And no poor peasant can come out of this debt trap even though they work for 24 hours a day. What will happen to these people? These people were completely losing their lands or their freedom or their economic position to money lender landlord nexus. At times, many landlords are money lenders too. At times, money lenders are there, but landlords are different. But overall, this nexus will suppress the villagers in the village. Today, in Telangana, we don't have this scenario. Much change is there in Telangana rural society. Why? Because one thing is objective conditions in the entire country has changed. It's another one thing. But the backbone of feudalism was completely broken by Naxalite movement in 1970s. We'll discuss how it was happening. Then, extra economic coercion. What do I mean to say here is, apart from the services which you will be rendering, the worker or the laborer will be rendering to the landlord at his fields, those persons and their family, entire family has to come and work in the house of the landlord, gadi of the landlord. All the works in the gadi will be done by the people who are there, labor in the fields. Actually, it is not at all related to your agriculture, but still these people are working 24 hours for the landlord's family, fields and everything. All these forms of extra economic coercions are there prevalent in Telangana society. Then village panchayats. In village, who is supreme? Again, the richest person, the landlord, is going to dictate the terms in the village panchayat. Though they are calling the panchayat, whose rule will be final? That is landlords. They will be dictating terms, they will be giving punishments, they will be imposing penalties and collecting penalties, and these penalties will be usurped or kept by the landlords. Lakhs of rupees were kept as fines, were fleeced by the people as fines in the form of fines in North Telangana. We'll see how the struggle is expressing itself against this form of exploitation too. Then comes untouchability, caste oppression. No Dalit or no lower caste people can walk before the gadi by wearing chappals. If you are crossing the gadi means that is the fort-like house or structure of the Dora, of the landlord. In many villages, there are gadis. Even today, you can see some of the gadis. Big structure. This is feudal mode of understanding. In capitalism, if you get some money, that surplus will be again invested into your business or into your industry. But in feudalism, what you do, whatever you get surplus, whatever surplus you fleece, that will be spent on your lifestyle, on drinking, liquor, or your luxuries, or your buildings. Gadis, huge gadis with so many rooms were constructed in Telangana by the landlords. Even today you have some of the gadis standing there as the witness of feudal oppression. If you see a gadi in Telangana, don't think that it is how beautiful it is, how big it is. Imagine that is the sweat and blood of the rural poor who were toiling in the fields and paying to the landlord. So those gadis, if a lower caste person or a Dalit is crossing over that gadi, if he has to passing through that gadi, he has to remove his chappal, hold in his hand and pass through the gadi. Only after that you can wear. You can't even talk to the landlord or Dora with raised voice. All these things are happening. And especially untouchability, Dalits are the ultimate sufferers in the village because of this feudalism. The rights were completely violated. They were boycotted from the village if you are not hearing the pleas, you're not hearing the dictates, or if you are not accepting the dictates or the power of the Dora, landlord. They will be boycotted socially. In the village, no one should interact with the boycotted person. So ultimately that person will be forced to leave the village, his household and his land and everything. And ultimately who will gain in this entire episode? That is the landlord. So Dorala Gadilu means their houses, fort-like structures, fort-like houses or fort-like, it is not even house, fort-like palatial bungalows are the forts of exploitation. So even in the latter period also, we always talked about Gadi Swamyam. It is not Praja Swamyam, Gadi Swamyam means the feudal conditions in the villages. So in this background, Naxalite parties are organizing the villagers in Telangana under different struggles, under different slogans. Land to the tiller is a much popular struggle or a slogan everywhere in the world, not only Telangana, because land is concentrated in the landlord's hand and the people who are toiling on the lands will be the sufferers. They don't get what they don't get the share, the just share in the agriculture fields. So automatically the basic thing is any person in rural area will be happy to have at least a minimum 2 or 3 acres tract of land for him or for his family so that the family can survive without buying the food grains. For food, you have to depend on land. Agriculture, the basic thing in agriculture is the food production. So everyone's dream is to have land in the village. So when people are being organized in the name of getting lands, definitely people, poor peasantry, landless labor, bonded labor, everyone will be happy. This we have seen in 1952 movement also, 1946 to 51 movement also. In 1946 to 51 movement, we have seen people getting organized against landlords and burning the promissory notes of the mortgaged lands, burning the records of the loans, and finally liberating themselves from the yoke of this moneylender landlord nexus. Even this time, land to the tiller is a popular and important slogan in the country. This slogan is important because this slogan will rally all the landless people in the country who are 60 to 70% of the rural populace. 60% of the rural populace do not possess land, but they are dependent on land. So automatically the property, the resource which you can get through struggle will make some will definitely inspire you to come into struggle. So this is land to the tiller. Next is wage struggles. As I said already, the less wages which are being paid by Doras are the rural persons who are having much say, bigger say in the village affairs. So people have to be organized in wage struggles. More wages, coolie rate. It was so less before the entry of Naxalite movement. It was 2 rupees or 1 rupee or 5 rupees, not more than that per day. When Naxalites entered, gradually the hike in the wages is happening. How it is happening, how they are getting organized, we'll see. Then abolition of Vetti. This is another slogan. Not only now, in 1946, this slogan was there. I am just moving from this movement to 1946 because nothing has changed except the name of the party. Then it was CPI which was leading the struggle. This time it is CPI-ML or Naxalbari politics leading the struggle. Struggle is same, demands are same, because the demands which were posed by 1946 Telangana armed struggle were not fulfilled. So automatically come 1970s, you will have the same agenda, and when the conditions are ripe, people will enter into such politics which is known as Naxalbari politics. Rural people or villagers are getting attracted to the slogans of the Naxalite movement because all these slogans are the demands or the demands of any political party should give for the upliftment of the rural society. Now it is Naxalites who are giving, opposing Gadi Panchayats. Gadi, as I said, it was the judiciary again. Not only revenue collector, not only police. You see, if I have to explain, Gadi or Dora is a police, is performing the duties of revenue, performing the duties of judge, performing the duties of the king, and all the important functions of the village or functions in a village will be performed by this Dora, and Gadi is the court now. Many times they were calling for discussions for panchayats inside the Gadi or before the Gadi, and the final word will be the Dora's word. So automatically this is another slogan on which don't want Dora's intervention. Some instances were there socially. Forget about the economic and all these things. Even if a wife and husband are fighting inside their homes, and the next day a panchayat will be called and both will be fined. They will be imposed a fine and they have to pay. That is how the feudalism is entering into your interiors of the home and finally making your life hell. Then another thing is land to the tiller, occupying the lands who are having much bigger tracts is number one. Second thing is occupying Banjar, Shikam or Poromboku lands which are under government, which are not being claimed by the other landlords, other people in the village. So occupying such lands and providing land to the landless is another slogan which organized peasantry in the rural areas. So Naxalite activists are people from the Naxalite party. Then it is CPI-ML and the other one is AP Revolutionary Committee. Two streams I have discussed in the earlier class. So these people went to villages. Who went to villages? Party activists. Students, youth who were inspired by the Naxalbari movement went to the villages and organized the people under the slogans which I have discussed till now. Who are the sections who will be organized? Those are poor, anti-landlord sections. Poor, having no land or having less land, or even some of the middle peasantry, middle level farmers who are being oppressed by the landlords. So all these sections will come to the fore and they will be standing together in the struggle against feudalism in the villages. That we will see how it is happening. So before going to the village, again I am linking the movement's political activity with the rural activity. What has happened in Naxalbari? The movement has broken. Then Srikakulam struggle continued. Then come to Telangana. Telangana is not a spontaneous struggle. In Telangana, it was a planned activity by the Communist Party known as CPI-ML or APCR. What is this? They have planned way. In a planned way, they are not going haphazardly. In a planned way, they are choosing some areas where the oppression is at its peak, choosing some areas where oppression is at its peak and sending the cadres to make the consciousness, grow the consciousness of the people, so that you will be gaining the sympathy and support of the people to spread the movement. It is a win-win situation for both CPML or Naxalite parties plus the people, because Naxalite party or communist or CPIML or any Naxalite party wants to bring revolution. Without people, you cannot bring revolution. So where are the people? People are suffering in the hands of feudalism. Liberate them from fear. Liberate them from the exploitation. Make the life at least a little bit comfortable. And then those people reaping the benefits of this struggle will have a different consciousness to fight against feudalism. So in North Telangana, the beginnings were happening with the help of the cadres who are conscious. See, when we talk about revolution, who are the people who have to fight for revolution? That is working class, as classical Marxism says. Working class means factory workers. But in a backward country like India, where the conditions are more feudal than a capitalist, so the change or the revolution will happen in the rural areas first. And in rural areas, again, theory is Marxism, ideology is Marxism to bring revolution. But people, they do not know what is Marxism. But they know what is oppression. They know how to fight it, but they are not organized. The activity of the Naxalite party or the Naxalbari politics is make the people conscious about their rights, about the fights, about the strengths. All these things will change the whole scenario, and people will come in thousands to gather and fight against feudalism. This was the understanding of Naxalite party. That is why first they focused in villages, in towns. As I said, some people, some important leaders like KS or Satyamurthy, these people worked in the educational institutions. They used to teach in a school, and at the same time in the evenings they used to go to hostels and organize the people, meet the students, especially Warangal and some of the centers like Hyderabad and major centers where students are in huge number. Get the conscious elements from the students and send them to villages in the name of Go to Village campaign. Once they are going to village, they will get attracted to the beauty of struggle. I am saying beauty of struggle. Why? Because once you are working or fighting for the rights of the people, sections who are getting the ideological bent already, now they are into practice. If the both things are mixed, they will be into it. They will enjoy it, they love it, and they will die for it. This is the equation I would like to say. So in this background, students, youth who are inspired by Naxalbari politics, educated by the Naxalite leaders, are going into villages. From 70 to 74, we can see a gradual change in the rural scenario. How they are going? They are going in secret way and organizing the people. They are not directly going and telling politics. They are going and settling in the villages or nearby villages, and in some pretext making some covers like they are doing some work in the nearby town, and they are interacting with the village, getting some of the advanced conscious elements and form a group, and finally making the struggles happen in the village. This is the method they have done. So the difference between Naxalbari, Srikakulam and Telangana is Srikakulam and Naxalbari both were like bursts, cloud bursts. It burst like we see cloud burst. మేఘం గర్జించడం కాదు, మేఘం పగులుతుంది, కుండ పగిలినట్టు పగులుతుంది. ఒక్కసారి కుండపోత వర్షం కురుస్తుంది. క్లౌడ్ బర్స్ట్ మీన్స్ హెవీ డౌన్ పోర్ విల్ బి దేర్ ఇన్ ద రెయిన్, బట్ ఇట్ స్టాప్స్ సడన్లీ. Srikakulam and Naxalbari can be compared with that. One more comparison is there for Naxalbari. Chinese radio, Peking radio, called it as spring thunder over India. You can get this question in your examination. Which movement is called as spring thunder over India? That is Naxalite movement. Naxalbari movement was known as spring thunder over India. So, when you are planning to go to the villages, choose best areas where the feudal oppression is high, where the conditions are good. There, the organizers, the people, the activists are going and organizing the peasantry, the village masses to fight feudalism in Telangana.